Hello and welcome to the Speaking Frankly Football Show. I'm Frank Hughes, the chairman of Skelmersdale United Football Club, and alongside me is my co-host and passionate press officer AJ the Jet. Not that being involved with the football club is a prerequisite for hosting a football podcast, but it certainly helps. We are ready to dive headfirst into the vibrant world of non-league football in the Northwest, and we might even take a moment to discuss some of the bigger headlines in the sport. We'll explore life in the Northwest counties, bring you interviews with well-known faces in the league, and analyse how local teams are performing while making bold predictions for their upcoming matches. Nothing is off the limits here. We'll be diving into all kinds of topics, including complicated refereeing decisions and regulations that often leave fans perplexed. We want to hear from you too. This is your show, so don't hesitate to reach out with topics you want us to tackle. Let's get this conversation started and enjoy every single moment. We are speaking frankly. Hello and welcome to the 22nd episode of the Speaking Frankly Football Show, and a warm welcome and return to the show for my co-host AJ. I've missed you. Where have you been?
Life goes on beyond the podcast, unfortunately, and it just caught up with me a little bit in recent weeks. So very glad to be back, Frank, and thank you everybody for tuning in to another episode of the show. So we will be looking at the Northwest Counties Football League as the domestic league has finished now, and all that's left is the playoffs. We're going to look at Southport, we'll look at Marine, and we will also be chatting to Chris Watts, who's the first team lead analyst at Bury Football Club, and then all of our attention in the final part will be towards the playoffs and the cup predictions, which are still left to come. All of that up your way. Coming your way.
Listen. Just shows you a little bit of time out, and the practice goes to pieces. But listen, I was thinking at this point to probably be introducing the show and saying that AJ and I have split up on artistic differences, but thankfully that's not the case. I've absolutely missed you, AJ. So it's nice to have you. Nice to have you back. And a lot has happened. We managed to have that nice interview with Dave Jones.
Certainly did, yeah.
Who sort of, we'll mention it later on, who's gone on to complete the treble. But listen, we'll do a quick Northwest Counties roundup before we speak to Chris Watts.
Right, yeah.
Now, of course, we're delighted to see that Bury managed to win the Premier Division. They've been a class act absolutely throughout.
They certainly have, yeah. So it was a 4-0 win over our neighbours, Burscough, at a packed-out Gig Lane. They've now secured the record for the highest attendance ever at a Northwest Counties Premier Division, with over 8,300 people in attendance on a very beautiful Saturday afternoon there. And I think once they'd gone 2-0 up, they were in a very, very strong position, particularly when Burscough went down to 10 men early on in the first half. So they cantered to the Premier Division title on that day by 4 goals to 0. Second, of course, were Lower Breck, who finished off their own.
They pushed them all the way, didn't they? There's no doubt about that.
Oh, absolutely no doubt about it at all. So they went to Cheadletown and won by 4 goals to 1. They knew that it would have been a little bit of a tall order to overcome Bury. They needed Bury to lose and a 5-goal swing at the end of it. It was always a bit of a tall order, but second place secured and a home playoff game as well.
And despite Colne managing a 2-1 home win against Abbey Hay, they were relegated. Prestwich Hayes lost, but as we know, I think the goal swing there was quite considerable.
Yes,
it would have took something really, really dramatic to turn that around.
Very much so, yeah. It was always going to play into Prestwich Hayes' hands by having I think it was a 10 or 11 goal.
Yeah, it's an 11 goal swing in the end.
It was, yeah. So it would have required a massive turn of results. Unfortunately, though, Colne just couldn't quite make it pay. In the end, despite that result against Abbey Hay, and they, along with Squiresgate, who were relegated 2 match days earlier, will be playing in the North West Counties Division 1 next season. Commiserations to both of those two teams. You fought a hell of a fight till the end.
Most definitely, yeah. Going back to the Bury result, I did see that there was a potential for a hiccup there because Bearscough were in incredible form. Like you said, the sending off is probably pivotal in the result in the end. Yeah. But 8,719 people attended the game. I think the stadium capacity is around about 16,000, or it certainly was in the Football League days. Yeah. But to get that place over half full is an amazing feat. And listen, we've probably got the best guest on the show coming up shortly in Chris Watts, because he'll be able to tell us all about the experience. Absolutely fabulous. But just looking at some of the final results there, I sort of took note of the fact that Glossop North End and of course our great friend Richard Brodie managed to finish off the season with a win after having a really, really difficult period. They managed a 4-0 win in front of a reasonable crowd of 266, given that there was nothing hinged on that result whatsoever.
No, not at all. Nothing but personal pride, really. And we know that Brodie's had a really difficult run of the last couple of months as his team sort of slipped from a potential top 10 finish. They've finished the season in 16th place, quite comfortable 16th place all told, but they ended the season in style, a 4-0 win over Pilks, with Keaton Mulvey getting 2 goals to his name on the final day of the season. So I think plenty for Brodie to build on at Glossop, but also a time for quite an extensive amount of reflection, I would think.
Yeah, most definitely. And a big shout out to Mark Hayes and Steve Leather. Steve Leather's the chairman at FC St Helens. It's been an absolutely remarkable season that they've had, the first season in the Premier Division. So brilliant finish for them. They managed to round off the season with a nice 3-0 win away at Earlham, which is a really, really good result.
Yeah, it's never an easy place to go. Is Earlham? They were in contention for the playoffs right up until the last month or two, and as I say, home advantage does count for a lot for them, but FC St Helens have gone there and done a really good bit of business there, a 3-0 victory over them, which secures FC St Helens 8th place in their first season in the North West Counties Premier Division. Again, another team that looked like they may sneak into the playoffs at one point. They'd been around that area of the table for almost the entirety of the season. So what a tremendous result that season has been for FC St Helens and all involved with them. Plenty to build on there for Mike Smith, the manager, and his team. A lot of discussions are actually taking place at the minute as to who people believe the Manager of the Season award should go to for the North West Counties Premier Division. For me, it would be Mike Smith. I think the job he's done at St Helens is absolutely incredible, and it shows a lot of potential that his team have got to finish 8th in their first season.
Yeah, listen, I think Dave McNabb will get it at Bury, to be honest with you. But listen, other contentions really. South Liverpool against AFC Liverpool. AFC Liverpool managed to win 2-1, but special recognition to South Liverpool in their first season. They just managed to hover above the drop zone. Listen, I don't think the resources are great there, any greater than they are at AFC Liverpool. AFC Liverpool have finished in a fine ninth place in the end. Absolutely brilliant. 22 victories, 4 draws, 20 defeats, and absolutely neck and neck. 90 goals scored, 90 goals conceded. The goal difference is 0, 70 points. It's an amazing sort of season there, and really fine margins in terms of results, and they probably could have finished a little bit higher than that. But as I've mentioned before, the resources at these clubs are far more limited than they are higher up in the division. So special recognition to both of those teams. Who else do we need to mention in the Premier Division? Of course, we're going into the playoff semi-finals, and we'll talk about that later. But just a reminder, I think it's Lower Brack versus West Didsbury. And Ramsbottom versus Padiham in the 2 semi-finals. So that they're really interesting looking games.
Most certainly.
But we've already had the playoffs in the Division 1 North and Division 1 South.
Oh, they didn't disappoint.
No, they didn't. If there's any surprises at all, I would just say basically that I wasn't expecting Exton Villa to be in the final. I thought it was going to be who's the other team that were playing in there?
Nelson and Droylsden.
Nelson, yeah. But I think it was mentioned in last week's show. Dave Jones said there was a few players suspended or out for that game, although I believe Charlie Frost was back, was he?
I think Charlie Frost may have been back, but he was struggling with that quad issue that had kept him hampered for the last few games or so. He ended up not taking the record for most goals scored in the Division 1 North for Nelson. Obviously a bit of a shame for that one. Max Kane did get on the score sheet for Nelson just before half-time, cancelling out Alex Cahoon's opening goal for Exton Villa in front of a really good capacity crowd. Actually, 435 fans turning out at Nelson Stadium to watch that game. And as we know in these type of cup games, if it is level after 90 minutes, it goes straight to penalties. And Exton Villa triumphed 10-9 on penalties. What an absolute marathon shootout that was.
Really, really close. And I think you mentioned Droylsden there. They won 4-2 on penalties. 843 people there. And that, of course, sets up the final now. Droylsden versus Exton Villa.
Yeah.
Droylsden having the home advantage, which is good because in terms of crowd, I would expect a crowd in excess of 1,000 for that.
I would think so too. Yeah.
At the very least. And then looking at the Division 1 South playoff semi-finals, Abbey Holton battered Eccleshall, which I expected.
So did I.
Yeah, Stafford, I thought maybe, and I think Dave alluded towards it last week. Sandbach, he thought we're going to sneak that one, but Stafford come good at the right time.
They certainly did.
They managed to get a 5-4 win, which looks a little bit sort of lopsided because Sandbach scored a very late goal in the 92nd minute to probably add a little bit of tension to the end of the game there.
Just a little, yeah. I mean, it was 2-2 at half-time, and then Stafford took a 4-2 lead going into the final 5 minutes of the game. Kieran Nolan scores a penalty for Sandbach to bring it to 4-3. Jaden Hunter scores in the 91st minute to 5-3, and then Sandbach, Joseph Bevan scores in the last minute of the game to bring it to 5-4. So it was a very topsy-turvy kind of game, and if you were Sandbach, you'd probably be kicking yourselves really for conceding 5 against against Stafford. Really, it's been a while since Stafford went on that kind of scoring streak, if you like. So, I think bitter disappointment if you're a Sandbach fan, but if you're Stafford, you are. Raring to go in that final against Abbey Hulton.
And Abbey Hulton, of course, will have the home advantage because they finished above Stafford in the end.
Did they?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, they just managed to sneak above them.
Wow!
With a late run of victories. So that's an interesting.
So it'll be played at Abbey Hulton's home ground.
Yeah, it will. So that's the other final, which is coming up this weekend. We'll discuss that later on in the show.
Yeah.
And listen, back to Atherton LR. They managed to pull off the treble. When I spoke to Dave Jones last week, they still had 2 finals to play, one on Saturday and one on the bank holiday Monday. I think he was a little bit annoyed that the games had to be played so close together.
Yes.
But he still managed to bring the bacon home. Beat Winsford 3-2 in the Champions Cup final with a late...
Stunning game,
late goal. Harvey Sample scored in the 84th minute, and then just to make it a little bit more interesting, Leandro Tanswell Vargas, there's a mouthful for you there, managed to score in the 87th minute to keep that a little bit sort of twitchy bum.
Yeah.
Is it twitchy bum?
It is twitchy bum.
Is it twitchy bum or squeaky bum?
Well, you say twitchy bum.
Right, twitchy bum. Oh, anyway, yeah, made it interesting in the end.
It certainly made it interesting for LR, going away from home to Winsford, who are on the back of that outrageous unbeaten run. I think it's 26 games that they were unbeaten before Atherton turned up, and it really could have gone either way. Winsford were 1-0 up at half time. It took LR until the hour mark before they scored, but Cal Hunter netting the second goal for LR before Harvey Sample scoring that third, and Hunter was actually on the score sheet twice in the Edward Case Cup final, which took place on Monday 21st, Easter Monday if you like, as LR beat Stafford Town 3-0 in that cup final in front of 405 fans at Crilly Park. A really good coup for Atherton LR actually was Cal Hunter. He only joined in the... second or third week of March. So actually by the time we played them, that was his second game for the club.
All right.
Having joined from Ashton Town.
Done your homework.
Yeah, and he's notched I think 7 or 8 goals for LR in that run. He's added an extra dimension to their attack there, and
they managed to spread it around there, haven't they, as well?
Absolutely.
Ryan Talbot and Harvey Sample are weighing in with goals as well. Harvey Sample, of course, I think he came midway through the season from Bearsco. Great acquisition for Atherton LR and for Dave Jones.
Yeah, absolutely. But he talked about this on the show, is wanting to accrue goal scorers and strikers who were able to kind of share out the demand amongst them.
And between to do that then.
Yeah, absolutely. And between Ryan Talbot, Cal Hunter, Harvey Sample and Brandon Dawson, they've managed to take the goal demands off top goal scorer Tom Romano, who I think managed. I mean, it's not a undignified number. I think he's notched about 22 goals or something like that. But then the goal threat from deeper has been spread around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just sort of rounding up the results there. West Riding County Cup final. Route 1 Rovers managed to beat Car United 4-3 on penalties in front of a healthy crowd of 700.
Yeah, that's a really good result.
Don't know much about Golcar myself personally, but
no, but I mean, if you're taking 700 fans into a cup final, that's not bad for either team. I mean, we've known Route 1 Rovers to accrue really quite unhealthy crowds of between 70 and 90 fans on a home game. They were sharing the stadium with Steeton over at Marley Stadium in West Yorkshire. So this one looks to be more closer to their home ground, and in fact got a equaliser in the 90th minute through top goal scorer Zakaria Khan.
Good player.
Very good player.
Tricky, fast.
Tricky and fast. Scored against us in that 2-0 win over us back in early January. So well worthy of their cup final victory, and congratulations to them on their first trophy, I think it is.
Yeah, well done. And listen, we'll discuss our end of season, Skelmersdale United, in the future at the end of the show in part 3, once we've done the predictions and our expert analysis. But yeah, we'll have a little word about Skelmersdale United and looking ahead to the season ahead. Listen, we're going on to sort of more localised non-league news, but further out. A Marine following National League North survival. So our new landlord's Marine recently announced the departure of Neil Young as their manager. He will now move upstairs as director of football. Neil's done an incredible job over the last 6 years, winning 2 Liverpool Senior Cups, reaching the FA Cup first round and third round, as we know, against Tottenham Hotspur a few years ago, and also leading them to promotion twice. Stunning, yeah. Neil's managerial CV is impressive, as he previously succeeded as manager at Camel-Airs, Colwyn Bay and Chester. He's obviously got something with the letter C. But listen, having watched a recent video of Neil, I noticed a very tired manager, almost running on fumes. He actually alluded to the fact that he hadn't had a holiday in the last 3 years, which is hardly surprising considering the growth of Marine in recent years. This focuses purely on the impact of mental health, and even at this level of football, it's an absolute tough gig.
Hugely, yeah, and I think Neil can only really be congratulated for what he's done with the club over the last 6 years. I mean, it's not to mention the accolades that he's accrued through winning silverware and reaching, previously unthought of peaks within within football, but then also managing to stave off the threat of relegation and retain their place in the National League North on multiple occasions. They finished actually in a very good position considering where they were at the beginning of the year. I mean,
I think it was February they were bottom of the league.
They were, as far back as
done
close
an
as
amazing
February.
run.
Yeah, I think it's 11 or 12 games that they ended up going unbeaten. They did lose that winning run, or unbeaten run, on the most recent game of their season when they lost away at Chester, which is not not an unreasonable result by any stretch of the imagination. Plenty of teams do lose to Chester at the Diva Stadium, so nothing to be sipped at there. But I can imagine that it takes it out of you.
Yeah,
doing a job like that.
No doubt about it at all. And I think you get to that position as a manager at any particular football club and wonder how far you can take it. I know the plans there we spoke to James Leary a few podcasts ago, and they're sort of fantastic plans for an £8 million stadium. It's going to be amazing if they can manage to pull that off, and the growth plan for Marine takes the strides that they expect it to, then it's going to be an amazing feat. But it probably needs somebody like Neil, who understands management inside and out, to more, get sort of upstairs and help whoever takes over as the new manager. We've no idea who the new manager is, other than what I would say is I think the recent retirement of is it Bobby
Grant.
Bobby Grant, yeah, Bobby Grant. I wonder whether he might he might sort of take the role of the manager, whether he's in that position or whether he's been interviewed for the job. I don't know.
Might very well be. I mean, he was I believe he's the club captain. Has a very good pedigree at higher non-league to lower professional league. He had a good period at Scunthorpe United. Yeah. When he was just starting out in football. So if he's ready to take some kind of coaching role within the setup, then good luck to him. I do believe that Marine will need somebody with fresh ideas, to see how the club can start to grow more within the National League North. I think, as you say, I wonder whether Neil feels that he's done what he can, and maybe it's time for some fresh ideas. But you can't take away how invaluable Neil's contribution is to the running of Marine Football Club, and to actually keep him as director of football. That's a brilliant piece of business for Marine.
Listen, he's had an absolutely amazing career, almost spanning 20 years in management now. So listen, best of luck to him. But listen, let's go back to the focus on mental health, because I spoke to Dave and talked about those lulls that you get in the season. We spoke to Tommy.
Yeah.
I spoke to Tommy around about March, I think, and we almost came to the position where I feel as though we're sort of walking in to these games really robotic at the end of the season. Not just managers, but coaches, people behind the scenes, directors, press officers, chairmen. We're actually, I sort of likened it to the fact that I felt as though somebody was pushing me in to the room. I was focused, I could see what was going on around me, but I felt as though I was literally getting pushed into the job late on in the season. And obviously it all culminates in a little bit of ill health. I've not been particularly well recently, but
well, we both ended up missing the last game of the season against Bay Cup, which I think is a first for both of us in terms of ill health. Oh right, yeah. I didn't expect it, and I did really, really missed it. But then I was fortunate enough to listen to a really one-sided commentary. And when I said to him, it's not a bad result this in the end, but. Listening to other people on the other side or our side, they were saying it was a lot closer than the commentator actually described it. But listen, it was brilliant commentary, by the way. I enjoyed it. And it was great, the fact that I could listen to something while I was lying in my bed. And he's sort of really, really depressed because he couldn't make the last match of the season. But listen, we'll talk more about Skem at the end of the show, and probably even talk about a little bit more about the sort of mental health issues that surround football. But listen, we'll move on to Southport Football Club. Southport up for sale again. Eyebrows were raised when the Big Help Group charity took control of the club in 2003. But by the sounds of it, Chairman Peter Mitchell has held talks with two potential buyers, and negotiations are going well. Now, from my perspective, I've worked at the club very, very briefly. The club definitely has great potential, but desperately needs someone with huge financial resources to turn it around. I mean, that sounds like an awful lot of the clubs at our level, and around it. Really, we've talked a lot about clubs needing an awful lot of investment. Farsley Celtic being one of them, us being another. We can Southport now being the latest to carry on that trend of needing big investment in order to thrive and survive, really. And you're absolutely right. They do have an awful lot of good potential there. They've got a great little ground going on. They've got a really good keen eye for young talent, as was pointed out when Renato Gomez signed for Southport. They just need somebody with deep pockets and a smart business acumen, don't they? I don't think they've replaced the manager yet, have they? I think they've just got an interim manager. They have, yeah. Question is whether Liam Watson will step back up again. I don't think he will. But Liam Watson is a director at the football club. Be interesting to see how that one works out. But listen, Southport once again have been languishing at the wrong end of the table. But they've managed to avoid the drop with Needham Market, Rushall Olympic, Warrington Town,
Town and Farsley doing far worse and ultimately being relegated. They did, however, win the Lancashire Trophy against Baker Borough last Wednesday. Now, listen, everybody likes to win a cup, and it doesn't really matter what that cup is.
No.
You know, but listen, at the end of the day, they've won a cup. I think they aspire to be much bigger than that. They should be in the Conference North at bare minimum. They are in the Conference North. Sorry, they should be in the conference. I would have anticipated that one day they'd be back up there again. But they need someone with really, really deep pockets.
Yeah,
and I don't see that coming off anytime soon.
No, despite the negotiations with these two potential buyers, I mean, that's all smoke and mirrors until we actually see the announcement being made, really.
So it's the final day of matches this weekend, and any one of three could win the National League North: Kidderminster, Brackley Town or Scunthorpe. However, Scunthorpe need to win and hope that Kidderminster and Brackley both lose.
Yeah, it looks quite unrealistic at this point. You know, Kidderminster and Brackley have been on really, really strong runs. There were big wins what come for both the teams last weekend. That's put them in pole position going into the last game of the season. Whereas Scunthorpe, although they won their last game, the week before they'd lost 1-0 to Kings Lynn, which was an enormous turning point in the title race. So Kidderminster will be going to Southport, and Brackley host Farsley Celtic. So he's got two games that both teams chasing promotion are expected to win, whereas Scunthorpe have to visit Hereford, so it's very much kind of out of their hands. You know, and maybe they'd have to settle for a playoff berth at this point, but Scunthorpe will be kicking themselves really because they've led the league for so long.
I know,
yeah.
Seems a pity. But yeah, so with probably thinking Kidderminster there. The only thing I'd say is that probably Southport stand a chance of spoiling the odds there, and if they do, and Brackley manage to win, then they could leapfrog both teams, providing Brackley. I'm talking about now here. Farsley Celtic.
Yeah, provided by Farsley Celtic.
Sorry, providing Scunthorpe don't win away at Hereford.
Yeah, I mean, it could go any one of several different ways, really, but I think we are kind of... I don't want to disrespect any team, but there's an expectancy around Kidderminster and Brackley to both win their games, so it could well be that the top three, as it is now, Kidderminster first, Brackley second, Scunthorpe third, is how they'll finish.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all there. There's some absolutely big teams in that division, isn't there?
There really are. Darlington as well, who aren't in playoff contention, but there's teams like Chorley that are. So the playoffs are going to be a magnificent round of games. You know, could be any one of the 6 teams that go up.
Yeah. So listen, we move on to Macclesfield Town.
Yeah.
Are they called Macclesfield Town or Macclesfield FC?
I think they are Macclesfield, yeah.
Are they right? Well, congratulations to Robbie Savage
yes.
and Macclesfield for winning the Northern Premier League and breaking all the Northern Premier League records. With one game to go this weekend, they've scored 105 goals, conceded just 30 and accrued 106 points. There is a 26-point gap between them and second place Worksop Town. I know there's a few bob knocking around at the football club, but as Robbie recently mentioned, you've still got to get the job done, and indeed that is what they've done.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, yeah, props to Robbie Savage. I know he's got money to use, but it's using it correctly, really, as big spending teams will tell you. It's not necessarily about buying the league. So he's done well extremely well to win the Northern Premier League in this manner and break the Northern Premier League records that go along with it. So what league does that put them in now, Frank?
Well, they'll be up into the the National League North.
Right. Okay. So there's
Be replacing one of the four that have been relegated.
Needham,
But listen, we'll come to that, I think.
Yeah, Needham, Rushall, Warrington, and Farsley. So replacing one of those ones. It'd be interesting to see just how they adapt into the new season.
And listen, it's not so long ago when Skem were playing Macclesfield, and I think Macclesfield won the league, and I think we got through the playoffs. Didn't we? Promoted? I'm not too sure. I might have that wrong, but so we were going head to head with them at one stage and giving them as good as they were giving us.
Yeah, but without their financial advantages. Yeah.
And Blythe Spartans at the other end of the table. They were relegated weeks ago, if you remember. We also interviewed Spartan fan Tony Young following a video of him telling his players how hurt he was following a 5-1 defeat at Bamber Bridge. I have not heard anything from him since. I was going to bomb him a text before this this podcast and see how things are going, but they've not managed to get a win at all since when we interviewed him, which was back in, I can't remember.
It was about 5 episodes ago now.
Was it that
4 or 5 episodes ago now? So unfortunately, the downfall of Blythe Spartans does continue. They've been relegated out of the
Northern Premier League.
The Northern Premier League, yes.
The Northern Premier League.
That's the one. So they'll be playing more localised football next year. The equivalent of the of North West counties. Wouldn't it be the Northern counties? Won't it? Or
who's this?
Blythe.
Oh no, Blythe. They'll be in the step below, which is Northern. There's what have they got now? The Northern Premier West and the Northern Premier East.
Oh,
so they'll be in one of them divisions,
right.
just above the Northwest counties.
Yeah, still
listen, it's still a demotion, isn't it? And the big club. But listen, let's hope they manage to start fighting their way back up again, because I've got a soft spot for Blythe Spartans.
Yeah, definitely.
Northern Premier League West, Clitheroe. We've talked about them quite often on the show. They not only managed to fight themselves out of a relegation dogfight since Sean McConville took over, but they've also managed to get a mid-table security.
Yeah.
It's been one hell of a season for them.
Very much so, yeah, and I think a lot of credit has to go to Sean for how he's stabilised the club since taking over in, when was it now, February?
Yeah, something like that. But there's huge worries about the finances at the time, which doesn't seem to have affected them now.
No.
I don't know whether people have reinvested or what, but
it's barely talked about, isn't it, at this point? But they've managed to get a really decent side together to start taking on these big boys. I think they drew their final game off the. Not their final game of the season, but their most recent game, I believe they drew 2-2. Mm-hmm. So there's still an awful lot of fight in them, and maybe a platform to kind of kick on into next season. But Sean was really quite complimentary about his club and how they've fought the good fight since he's come into it. So
they've done extremely well. And listen, we always look out for Sean because he's a ex-Skem player, a legend if you like. But listen, looking at the other end of that division, City of Liverpool, Hanley Town, and Wythenshawe Amateurs, or they're not called Wythenshawe Amateurs anymore, have all been relegated.
Yeah.
Wythenshawe Town could follow their neighbours if results don't go their way. They're the 3 points behind Kidsgrove Athletic with a 0 goal difference, which I found rather bizarre at that bottom end of the table. That's strange. But if Grove lose at Bootle and Withy Town beat Newcastle Town, then they'll avoid the drop. But it looks as though at this point that both Wythenshawe teams who were promoted last season could both be relegated within the same season as well.
Oh, that's almost unheard of, really, isn't it? Two teams from the same area being promoted in the same season and then relegated in the very next season as well. You'd never have had odds on that occurring.
No, but a lot of money spent on one of the Withens shows.
Yes,
Not too sure which one, but
I believe it was Wythenshawe Town that had a lot of money invested in them. So that's deeply disappointing from that end of the scale. You wonder what kind of
allegedly losses of over £400,000.
Yeah, in directors' loans, we've gotten we haven't got any major evidence to substantiate that one. It is all kind of hearsay at this point.
Well, it's on record with Company's House apparently. But anyway, listen.
I didn't look at Company's House. But,
we all know it's difficult to run a football club, and that's no different for those that have been really ambitious and managed to get promoted from the North West Counties Premier League last season. But listen, at the top, it's a fight between Widnes and Hednesford. Both clubs have tough home games against Trafford and Runcorn Linnets, respectively. They share the same goal difference, so it's an interesting day in prospect.
Yeah, it is, yes. I think Widnes are they ahead by a point going into this weekend's fixtures? I'm not too
sure. I thought they were all neck to neck, but they certainly are in terms of goal difference, aren't they?
No.
Listen, I'll keep on gabbing while you're looking up for the doing the research for me. Yeah,
but, I mean, Hednesford are really well backed, aren't they?
A big club, huge club.
Yeah, huge.
Lovely club. Stadium as well.
Oh, are they? Yeah.
Went there a few seasons ago when Skem were playing in the Northern Premier League. Really great setup there. Like I say, tough games for both of them. Trafford and Runcorn Linnets won't be easy, but they do have that home advantage.
Yeah, so Widnes are top by 3 points. So it's all on Winsford to be able to...
Hednesford either Widnes losing...
Yeah.
Or a draw will do them, by the way, Widnes, won't it?
Yes, a draw will do. Just by a point if Hednesford win, but a point will do for Winsford, for Widnes, pardon me, against Trafford, who are sitting in 8th, and then Runcorn Linnets in 9th. So that not exactly easy games for either of the top two. You would imagine Widnes are you would kind of see that one through. They are on a bit of a hot streak at the minute as far as results are concerned. They're unbeaten in their last 5 games and have three draws in that time. So, like I say, a point would do. Yeah,
well, my money's on Widnes. We played them in a pre-season friendly before the season started, obviously, and they looked pretty good then.
Yeah, most definitely. Whereas Hednesford, again, unbeaten in 4 games, won 3 of those, but 2 of them were against Wythenshawe Town and Kidsgrove, who are really struggling down at the bottom. So you would imagine against Runcorn Linnets that'd be a very different prospect for them.
Well, I think we've covered most areas in the Northwest, certainly the Northwest counties and the Northwest area. So to sort of rounds that up before we go into the part 2 of the show, where we'll be interviewing Chris Watts, who's the first team lead analyst at Bury. I'd just like to say before we leave this half, I'd just like to say a quick mention to Nick Matthews. Nick was formerly on the management team at Skem last season. He's been in hospital recently. What he thought was a relatively routine operation turned into a bit of a nightmare, which saw him being reoperated on. He's recovering in hospital, but will have to return for major surgery. He's not had the best of the times, so we all wish him all the very best from Skelmersdale United and the rest of the non-league family. Get well soon, Nick.
100%, yeah. All the very best to you, Nick.
Yeah. See you in the second part of the show. Special shout out to all the businesses that support Skelmersdale United Football Club, Origin Sign Company, T&W Garners, 7PDS, Skem Express Cars 5005, Lease Car UK, RNB Auto Centre, SB Skills Solutions and Hey Presto Web Design. Thank you to everyone who donates to the club, supports our race nights, raffles and the lottery bonus ball scheme, and of course the last man standing. A special thanks to those who organise these fundraising events, especially the incredible Lee Davis and Lucas Bergquist. To all who stand by us both on and off the field, we are truly grateful. If you wish to sponsor the show, please contact me at chairman.skemutdfc@gmail.com or call me on 07766 054 548. All proceeds will go to Skelmersdale United Football Club. Thank you for your unwavering support. Hello and welcome to the second part of the Speaking Frankly football show, and a warm welcome to Chris Watts. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Frank.
Listen, nice to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for coming on the show today.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So talk to us first about what a first team lead analyst is and does.
I think depending on the club, it can change that. Like it's quite a broad title, isn't it? And in previous years when I've done it at other clubs, Skem being one of them, it's took on little bits and pieces of its own, and now, obviously being at the club that I'm at now, there's a little bit more resource there, so we can do some more things that we've not been able to do before. So primarily kind of what I focus on is player performance. So with the GPS trackers that we've got through StatSport, it's pulling all that information out, kind of presenting it in ways that are kind of understandable to everybody, working with the players to try and improve on little things. It leads into medical as well, in terms of like kind of managing fatigue levels and load on players throughout the season, trying to spot little kind of spikes in those things that might help us prevent injuries, and then also like from a competitive standpoint, you're looking at distance covered in games and high speed running and benchmarking lads, so that we've got an idea of whether they're hitting in targets that we think they should be hitting for the position. So that's kind of the bulk of it. There's other little bits and pieces as well that comes with it. So
I'm scrambling around for my pen here.
You've lost your pen, haven't you?
That's fine.
Lost my pen, sorry.
Cutting edge organisation.
Sorry, Chris. I was just going to say to you how what we've noticed is we've noticed now that at non-league level, this sort of era of players now, they're very, very focused on fitness. You very rare do you see on an away coach travel players absolutely throwing themselves bonkers on ale. It just doesn't happen anymore.
Not on the way to games now.
Pardon?
Not on the way to games.
Well, certainly not on the way to games, but even after a game.
So the away.
Even post match, we've noticed that players don't tend to neck their pints at all. Like, obviously, I know from a fitness and analyst perspective, you'd probably discourage that. But is there a kind of a limit to how much you'll want to notify players of performance? Like, will you let them be human?
Yeah, of course. So kind of how we do it is we built our own kind of like reporting system for it. So we kind of drop all the data into it and it populates it, so the lads have got a page for themselves where it shows all the bits that they see. And then it kind of compares them to other lads in their position, and they can look at it and see how they're doing. Ultimately, I think, mate, a lot of the times it comes down to the individual and how much they want to take it in. Some players who've been around a long time, like, they look at it and they'll take it on board, but it's not for them. And then other lads, particularly the younger ones who may have come out of academies more recently, that are kind of used to it, they're a little bit more into it and they understand it a little better, and they can take little bits of information from it. And ultimately, it's trying to find little bits of percentages that might make a player better.
Can you tell if they've been refueling the wrong way?
Yeah, sometimes you can, to be fair. And a lot of the times, probably more so during pre-season or if you get new lads coming in, you'll be able to see if the drop-offs are coming at certain times, and a lot of the times it's down to intake before games, Red Bulls, things like that you'll see all the time with lads when they're playing that aren't great for them. And it's pointing that out and saying you can show them data behind it when you approach them and say, have you tried this or have you tried that? Because this is what's happening when you're having these or this or that, or you're eating the wrong things before it, or you're not preparing right for games. So we try and pull out that, and I know the level's the level, but we played 55 competitive games this season, and some of the lads featured in 54 of them in Rustam Steppen's case. So if you're not doing the right things and you're not taking those things on board, you're probably not going to play that many minutes and that many games.
And you're more prone to injury, of course.
Absolutely.
More prone to injury. So, do you link up quite extensively with the with the coaching department? You know, because obviously you can give them all the statistics and the numbers, the players anyway. But how are you giving them the directives as to how to improve on these numbers?
So how it works, like there's 5 people in our management team. There's obviously Dave McNabb, the manager, and Tim Lee's the coach. They're very data-driven managers themselves. So a lot of the stuff that we do comes down from them because they want to see it. And then there's me and Sam Ashton, the goalkeeper coach, and Darren Davis, the scout, ex-Skem, and bits of the role that they cross over a lot in different ways. So obviously the data, it's not just about kind of GPS and performance stuff. We track a lot of things with the goalkeepers and kind of shot mapping, where we're conceding, whether shots are low or high, or where they are, to try and improve the goalkeepers. That way you can provide that to Sam and say, look, okay, you know, we've seen this, you know, let's work on that in training next time, and that helps him plan his session with Mitch or with Russ. And with other players the same. If we see something in that we're seeing, whether it's set pieces, which were mine anyway, so the data that we do on set pieces will help me and Sam again, who helps with the set pieces as well, to plan what we're going to do next time in terms of defending and attacking corners or free kicks and things like that. And it all just ties into one if you get it right. And I think, you know, we've been together as a group for 2 years now, and I think we've got to the point now where we're getting it right, and it's all working well. It really just takes everyone to buy into it, from the manager down, and that's
I assume the media side of things as well, they help.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's times you know we put certain things out, like in terms of kind of your data, whatever they need, we'll provide it to them at times. Sometimes we don't want to give too much away ahead of games. Obviously, you know, our media team are really, really good, and we've got coverage all over the place. And from a first team point of view, in these leagues, it's quite difficult to get hold of material on other teams. We don't want to be just handing everything over. Obviously, you know, there's an incentive to kind of come and beat Bury, isn't there, I think, and we don't want to give away too much sometimes, but yeah, we've got a big media presence that helps in a lot of that too.
And how do you manage that yourself personally?
I think at first, like there's an added pressure up there that comes with that side of it. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in the club, isn't there, and from a media point of view, that's there. But I think with anything, you kind of just grow used to it, and it just becomes part of the job, I guess.
Well, tell us, how did you actually get the job in the first place then?
So I got it off the back of being at Skem.
Yeah.
So.
Because you were scouting, weren't you, for Everton?
Yes. Yeah. So I'd started it. I guess we'll probably go all the way back, and that probably makes more sense to kind of lead into it. But I was coaching in my 20s up to 30 at schoolboy level locally, which is how I know Dave Jones and Lou Sumner, who's at Glossop and stuff, because they were in youth teams that I coached at the time. So there's a few lads that have ended up in non-league that I've known since they were kids, really. And then I had a bit of a career gap working for a pretty well-known coffee chain, opening stores. And then once I'd finished with that, I got back into football, which is where Everton came around. Obviously, my background with coaching in the local area, they were after academy scouts at the time, so I started there, and that got me into non-league. So I started with Burscough, working with a lad who was also scouting at Everton at the time, and then moved to Skem. That was under Paul McNally, and he moved to City of Liverpool, and Richard Brodie had come in. Who I obviously knew because he'd been a player at Skem when we were there previously. And that's kind of where it took off for me with non-league for me, really, was the trust that and the relationship that I built up with Brodie and Mike Smith and Jack Hook, who were the coaches at the time, and obviously Sam was playing with Skem at that point. We got promoted out of the counties, second to Macclesfield. I can't remember what year that was now. It feels like a lifetime ago. But and then we had the NPL West season, and we did really well. And that's almost where I transitioned from doing opposition analyst to being first team analyst. So there was a little change there to the point where we kind of knew everything that we could about teams. And it changed to me being kind of on the bench with Jack and Mike Smith and Brodie, trying to give little insights on things that I knew about these teams, but in game, rather than it just being kind of like reporting and then handed over. And it worked really well, and we had a really good season in the NPL West that year. I think we finished 11th on the back of being promoted the year before, and that was a really strong season. We were only a couple of wins away from getting playoffs, but unfortunately we had the kind of cloud hanging over the head of the fact that we were going to be demoted. So we'd obviously moved to Burscough the year before that. So that NPL West season we played at Burscough, and then we were hoping that we'd be able to stay in the NPL West, staying at Burscough, but the ground didn't meet the grading. Much like the JMO issue, and
the issue we don't talk about.
We got demoted, and you know, like, it's so tough for teams. So I mean, that's a long-winded way of saying we'd started to plan. Myself and Brodie, obviously Mike Smith had gone and he got the FC St Helens job, and Jack had worked with Dave McNabb and Tim at Warrington Rylands. So he'd gone to Bootle at that point because they were there. Me and Brodie, and we were planning for another season at Skem, and he moved to Burscough. And I'd spoken to Jack, and Jack was like, well, you know, do you want to come to Bootle with me? And I was like, I'm not sure what's going on here, but it worked out that way. I think I'd maybe met Dave maybe twice before that. I think we'd been to a game and caught up with him, and we played Bootle not so long before the end of the season that year, and you know we'd kind of talked there. But that was really my first dealings with him. So it was Jack Hook that got me in with Dave and Tim with Bootle, and we'd not been there that long. I think that they'd come in at the end of the previous season to keep them up because they were having a really bad time of it at the time, and obviously Dave and Tim had been at Macclesfield previously from that, and I joined in the pre-season, and a couple of months later we were in at Bury, and yeah, that was the story.
That's the story.
Yeah.
Listen, it's a pretty huge club, Bury, isn't it? We'll come on to talk about it. Huge potential. So I guess having someone at the club like yourself now has become more essential. We don't see a lot of it at this level, but we talk about Bury's potential and to get back into the football league eventually, and that's, you've got to be professional from the absolute foundations right up. So it's really crucial role. Do you see it as a good place to start an apprenticeship in terms of lead analysts for potentially if you're going to move up to the higher leagues?
Absolutely. Like I said before, I think you need the right team to get it off the ground. You know, if it wasn't for Dave and Tim, because we started it at Bootle, really, we'd have had the same thing in place there as we have here, because they're the standards that they set, regardless of where they're at, and you know that's why they've been as successful as they've been.
And they all buy into it.
Yeah,
which is the most
absolutely.
important thing.
That's the most important thing. we've been able to take it on at Bury now and develop it, and we've got to a point with it where it kind of far surpasses what we had previously at Bootle, just because we've been able to put more into it, and we've had 2 solid years of working on it now, and it's a lot of work, as you guys know yourself. Like, most of it is voluntary. I'm in the lucky position that it's not voluntary for me, that side of it.
But it's just going to come to that, because
it's still the travel is
Mm.
pretty much offsets whatever you get for it. So
it's really difficult to make a living out of football. Did you see the opportunity of taking up the role of as commercial manager of a way of continuing in terms of being a lead team analyst as well? Because I'm assuming that was a voluntary role at this stage.
Pretty much. Like, Dave and Tim have been really good, and they've always made sure that the staff get something. And we take that offer because we want to work with them. And that was the same at Bootle, to be fair. Like, it wasn't entirely voluntary there. So, and that comes down to them again. They make sure that you compensated as much as possible that fits in with the budget. In terms of the commercial role, that's my background. That's what I did my masters in. So when the job came available a couple of months ago, I spoke to Dave and said, what do you think? Because it was important to me that he was on board with it, and that he didn't think there was any kind of clash or kind of issue there between having two roles at the club, and he was completely on board with it, and encouraged me to do it, and he knew that I'd be really good at it. But I had to go through the process like everybody else does, and apply for it and interview for it, which was difficult. But you're probably right in saying that it's a way into full-time football, really, that a lot you have to work a long time for. And I had the benefit of knowing the club and knowing the fan base and knowing the people, and I still had to show what I could do, but I think it did help, for sure.
Listen, 8,719 people witnessed Bury lift the North West Counties Premier Division title on the final day of the season with an emphatic 4-0 win over Bearscough. Magnificent achievement, to say the least. Before we analyse the season, great credit must go to Gary Moore's Lower Breck, who kept you on your toes for so long.
Absolutely. And in fairness, without that challenge, we probably don't get almost 9,000 people on the last day. I think that jeopardy that was involved in it helped to drum up the interest around the town, going into the game knowing that we still needed something. And I mean, I think we could probably talk all day about only having one team go up automatically in a league of 24 teams. Like, it's craziness. To finish second on 106 points is...
Are they not far behind Ramsbottom on 97 points?
96, something like that again.
It's an unbelievable season. There's absolutely no doubt about that, and you've been put through your paces. But listen, it's not always been easy, because there was significant upheaval back in November when volunteer John Raftery was dismissed. It drew a fair bit of attention publicly and a lot of criticism. This culminated in the resignations of CEO Neil Sears and Chairman Marcel de Mattis also stepping down. I guess from your perspective, and Dave McNabb's, you've got to carry on focusing on football, but how difficult was that for you and the footballing staff?
I think you're probably right in saying that we have to focus on the football. Obviously, we'll all had relationships with all three of those guys in different ways at the club. So I suppose the challenge is keeping the fan base on board, because obviously, there's a lot of relationships between them and the people involved. And I think we might have played AFC Liverpool just after it. And it was an early kick-off on a Saturday morning at Marine. And there was a concern there about, well, are people going to come and support us? But they did, and I think that showed us that although there's things going on behind the scenes, the fans are just behind the team, because they came down in the numbers and got us over the line as they always do. So it really was a case of you have to just carry on and try and shut it out and let things play out behind the scenes the way that they have to with the people involved, and it ultimately kind of doesn't really impact first team operations really.
Yeah, but Dave McNabb did come out and make a statement himself, which was we thought was pretty bold at the time. But listen, the sad thing about it is at that particular time you're doing really well on the field of play. There's you're doing well in the FA Cup. Results in the league are admirable. You're doing really well. But listen, all great things sort of come to an end. A great run in the FA Cup was sadly curtailed by Harbour Town in the fourth qualifying round. A defeat in the Manchester Premier Cup and the first round of the FA Vars made it 3 defeats on the trot. Albeit all cup competitions, the psychological aspect has to be dealt with going back to league competition. Is part of your role entail the psychological aspect of the game as well?
I think it does for any coach or anyone involved with the first team. Obviously, you kind of build up different little relationships with different players in different ways, and I think throughout the season there'll be ways that you can lend an ear to players if they need it, if you need to pick them up after runs like we were on, particularly Harbour. That was a difficult one to take because of the manner of the defeat. We lost a really late penalty, which was scandalous, really.
Yeah.
We've all been there, we've all seen it, so we're not the only ones for it to happen to. But obviously that coach journey home was tough. One step away from being in the first round of the FA Cup,
which would have been huge for Bury, wouldn't
Absolutely, yeah. And we, in ways, we were a little bit disappointed that we hadn't managed to get a TV game before it, particularly when we played Radcliffe, because we thought that was perfect for it, and it didn't happen, and we kind of thought,
did they start televising at that stage?
Yeah, I think they might have televised West Didsbury and...
Sorry, can I just interfere here? Somebody's tapping the foot and it's coming through into the mic.
Sorry.
Sorry, it's just...
Could be me.
It might be off-putting. But go on, you say that the early rounds of the FA Cup still...
there was a couple of them that were on the iPlayer.
The BBC iPlayer stuff, yeah.
So yeah, we were kind of looking particularly at Radcliffe and thinking we were going to get that one. Yeah. But back to your question, I mean, there's always times throughout the season, even during games, half-time, where you've kind of got to put an arm around lads and pick them up, and that's part and parcel of it. And there's been numerous times last season, playoff final defeat on penalties, and then this season again, a couple of defeats in, like you mentioned, in early December, and you're looking at it thinking it's going to be tough, and you have to pick them
So
up.
it's all about reminding the players that you played exceptionally well so far. You've had a little blip, but just remember the quality's still there. Listen, you just alluded to it there, that stretch from the last week in November to the beginning of January, when you lost 3 league games, drew 3, but still won 4 games. It's really difficult to be critical of the club when it's had such a tremendous season. But there was a brief moment when some of the results had the doubting Thomases creeping out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Unbelievably.
I mean, I think sometimes there's probably an element of thinking, or from a fan perspective or an outside perspective, that because Bury are almost a big fish for this level, that you should be walking over teams, and we all know that that's just not realistic, and that's not the case. You play 46 league games a season, draws and defeats are part of it, and from our point of view, we have to look at them and okay, we drew a couple of games at home, but they probably ended up being the difference down the stretch.
Yeah,
definitely.
So it's about trying to keep perspective. Sometimes to know that defeats are always going to happen. Like no matter who you are, like from the level that we're playing at to the very top, you're always going to lose some games. It's about how you react to them and how you bounce back to them. And I think, on the whole, particularly this season, we've done that really well. And anytime we have had tough moments, we've always bounced back well.
Well, you certainly bounced back from the 4-0 defeat to West Didsbury and Chorlton, because then you went on a 15-match winning streak to win the league. But the pressure has always been on with Lower Breck breathing down your neck. But you've managed to get over the line. What's your thought process been like during this period from an analytic sort of view? You've done your job?
I think, and from personal opinion on it, was that I always kept looking back to last season where we were always playing catch up. So when we went in at the end of September, I think the club had played maybe 16 league games at that point, because obviously the counties, they front load everything, don't they?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, which hindered you guys so much this season.
Well, we could have been relegated in November, technically, you know what I mean? That's how
so at that point, when we went in there, we were already playing catch up. I think there was something maybe like 10 points behind the leaders at that point. There was a points deduction coming.
Bottom were doing really well.
Yeah, there was a points deduction coming from a paperwork problem from before we went in, and there was a couple of games behind closed doors hanging over the head at that point. So once we got all the way through that and the points had gone and we played the behind closed doors games, we felt we were always chasing, and psychologically that's tough, because you can get there and then you fall away because it took so much to get there. That you end up on that sticky patch, and that's kind of what happened to us. We went on a really good run from like November through to March where we were winning. I think that included the game when we lost at Skem, didn't we, at the beginning of, or late November, and then we went on a run. Played you again in the December January that year. Yeah. But we were always clawing at somebody else, the two Withenshaws, and
who look as though they could both go down.
Yeah, and I think Paddy were up there, and I think we ended up playing Paddy at FC United because our pitch was done, and we lost that one as well. It was done
when we played you at Gig Lane, because it was Mark Ballagino got injured there, never played another game this season, did he?
Yeah, it was really tough, and this season, I think that those of us that were there, we almost used that as a point of reference in terms of, we obviously had quite a backlog of games to play after the FA Cup run, and we kind of kept going back to that point of once we're on par with everybody else and we're training twice a week, you'll start to see the best of this group. And when we got to this run of 15 wins, it kind of started. We lost at West Didsbury, but then we played the Isle of Man on a Tuesday night, and that was our last Tuesday game. We won that last minute winner and kicked on from there, because we believed in the group that we had, that once we did get them twice a week into training, and we were just playing that Saturday, that run would come. And
you've really done it the hard way, haven't they? You think about it. It's amazing to come back, with that backlog of games and actually manage to keep winning, and that momentum going is amazing.
From an analytical point of view then, does having two games, it's such a congested fixture list during those opening months of the season, does that weigh so heavily on you to have to dial down every single statistic?
It can do. And that's where the voluntary hours come in, I guess, because you get home from your day job and then you spend the evening working on that. Particularly if you're playing on a Tuesday, so part of my job is obviously post-match analysis on the game as well. Your data from the match, heat mapping, shot mapping.
It's quite an unsociable job, isn't it? Really,
absolutely. And the way that we work, we want that the next day. So that we can work on it, because if you're playing Tuesday, you're training Thursday. So you need that pressure, to prep for Thursday. Well. But mostly it's just more difficult for the players, isn't it? To be fair, because you don't have that recovery session.
No.
You know, when you're part-time like they are, you're heavily reliant on them doing the right things in their time away from the club, which can be tough for themselves because they work too. And obviously a lot of them have got manual jobs where they're sat at a desk that pose different problems in terms of posture and you know, kind of what they need to do to recover from games. And when you get the 2 sessions a week, that's where you can lighten one of your sessions and make it a little bit more fun. And then you do your shape work in the session before the game. So yeah, like Tuesday, Saturday games always pose an issue. You play Saturday, they have Sunday off and recover, then you've got to get yourself back up to train. We train Tuesday, Thursday now, so they train Tuesday or play Tuesday, and you've got one day.
Do you actually train it now at Kick Lane? With the plastic.
And that's a big part of the success this time as well, because
the plastic pitch.
Yeah, last year we trained at 2 different facilities, one in Salford and one at a school round the corner from there. One of them wasn't a full size pitch. It was AstroTurf, but it had wood chip on it, which when in the winter months it froze over and you couldn't train. And the obviously on the other side you had other people training on it. We got half a pitch at the other facility. So you could.
We've had to struggle with a third of a pitch, so I've got no sympathy for you there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was the same when I was at Skem. To be fair, we still trained at the JMO even though we were at Burscough, and that was the same. Sometimes you'd be in one of the cages. Sometimes you'd get, you know, maybe if you were lucky, half the pitch on the main pitch. Sometimes you were on a third on the other pitch. So look, these are all challenges that face every non-league club, aren't they? I think, and we're in a fortunate position now to have our base. And with that comes some other kind of privileges. You've got your medical team set up in there. And we're very lucky with the medical team that we've got. Alan Raw has been in the game a long, long time. He worked for Man City under Mancini in that role. And Aidan, who's the other physio there now, he works for City now. And you know, he's at Bury because it's his club. And we're incredibly lucky with that. And to have that facility and that base, it means that if lads are carrying knocks, we can send them in on days when they wouldn't necessarily be training to get worked on. And whilst we're training, they can be in the medical room getting work like that. We've obviously got the kind of screens up in the changing room, so we can do the analysis bits, whether it's clips of set pieces from opponents or anything that we want to show lads in terms of our shape or whatever we're going to come up against. We've got that ability to do that now, and last year we didn't. So that has helped considerably.
Listen, it's a fabulous setup, there's no doubt about that. And listen, what we thought at the very beginning of the season, the recruitment was fantastic. You know, in terms of, you say, you know, the recovery times and that, we've obviously pinpointed players that are exceptionally fit. I mean, there's a long list of players there, but they're absolutely top of their fitness game. So they've, in terms of recruitment, were you involved in the recruitment side of things as well?
It's all a team. Obviously, Jimmy Holmes was the head of recruitment at the time. So he'd worked with Dave and Tim at Macclesfield, and he'd been really successful there through the counties, winning the division that we've been in, you know, and then going again and again to the point where they are now. And then he came in and helped us out this season. He's moved on to South Shields now. And he's doing well up there. But it's Brian Richardson now.
Fabulous character, Brian.
Obviously, you'll know well.
Lovely bloke.
So he's coming from FC United. So
funny.
Yeah,
he's
great.
He's hilarious.
So a lot of it gets done between, you know, director of football, whether it's Jimmy or Brian and Dave and John Newby on the board. And you know, they're the guys, and we have our input. Myself, Sam, Tim, Daz, who obviously sees all the players most of the time as the scout.
It needs to be a collective now, doesn't it? The ambitions are, you know, high, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think it works because we all have different opinions in ways. Like, you don't want to be a group that just all agrees with each other, because if that's the case, then it's highly unlikely you're all going to see football exactly the same way and see players exactly the same way. Sam will see things from a different point of view because he'll have played with some of these lads before. Tim will have coached them when they were kids. I'd have worked with them when they were at Skelm or seen them before at Bootle and other places, or when I was scouting, you pick up bits of information on them then. So we've all got little bits and pieces to add to it, and it almost comes down to, can we form the best possible basis of opinion around players, and then you leave it to kind of Dave and Brian now to get that done and bring lads to the club.
I think since the rebirth of Berry, it started to grow arms and legs. I think it's grow fingers and toes as well. Now it's getting, it is a massive club again. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But highs and lows of the season, obviously the West Didsbury and Chorlton one you start thinking, because they're contenders as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not wrong in saying this, but that was probably, for all of us, one of our worst days in football.
Yeah.
It was, everything about it was just wrong from kick-off to the end of it. It just, we all have those days, I guess. But what it did do is it showed us some things that we needed to put right. When you're on little runs where you lose a game and then you win a couple and you get a couple of draws, sometimes it can start to paper over some cracks. And then you see that next defeat come. For us, it was Lower Breck, and then we fixed it for a little bit, and then it was Litherland, and we fixed that again.
Because that's probably the one defeat that you're not expecting at all, isn't it, Litherland?
Yes and no, but just because it's a horrible place to go. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a Wednesday night in December. It was really windy. It was lashing down. We weren't sure whether it was going to be playable, the pitch, and it's a long way for a lot of the lads to travel. For me, it wasn't too far. It was probably one of my local ones, but for them, after
you still
work,
have to take your binoculars, don't you, to see the pitch?
Yeah, that's it. So, and look, on the day, particularly there, they're a tough side, and they beat us on that day, and they deserved it. We went on another little run after that, I think, where we went to Chadderton just before Christmas and won. And we played Ramsbottom on Boxing Day, and we drew that game. And you started to look at it like we should have won the game on the day. I think we conceded from the only 2 attempts that Rami had on target in that game.
You did, yeah.
And we came away from it thinking, you know what, it's took us top. We're still top. It's in our hands now, but there was a little bit of disappointment there that we weren't a couple clear. And then we lost to West Didsbury, and I think that was the turning point for us, really, where...
Well, it certainly was, because it's it speaks volumes, the fact that you've gone on a 15-match winning streak.
There was a few things that we changed, from formation to a couple of personnel to some of the ways that we were doing things in terms of prep, to make sure that result didn't happen again, and thankfully it didn't. And
it's not easy to keep a 15-match winning streak going. That's hard work in itself, and there's close calls in between there as well, isn't there? Late goals and close calls. You think you might lose games, or you...
Absolutely, that's where the character comes out, and that's really credit to the players. That once we got to that point, we'd had the late winner against the Isle of Man at home, where I think we scored from a corner in the 96th minute or something like that, and that started it. That started the run, really. We got a really early goal away at South Liverpool, and then we had to dig in. 1-0. I think we didn't concede a goal in the last 9 games. We had 9 clean sheets on the bounce, and that's all down to mentality of the players gaining that confidence in themselves as a group to go out there and think, we're not going to concede today, and if we don't concede, we'll win because we've got goals in us. The goals is something that we're really proud of as a group. I think we're still the top scorers in all of football in this country.
How many is it for?
I think league goals, it was 131 league goals, and
wow.
I think we add on, I think it was maybe 21 goals in the cup this season.
Well, we thought Macclesfield had done well on 100. I think they were 103 goals, weren't they? 106 points, but
it's just ludicrous, isn't it, when you think about it in that perspective?
Because it's a long season, it's 46 games, isn't it? It's not like a Premier League 38 games.
I think all these things we were starting to make the lads aware of them. We are top scorers in the country. It's something that not everyone can say, and if you're a winger or a forward, you want to contribute to that, don't you? And make sure you get over the line, and obviously your defenders are just desperate for clean sheets, and you have to say, Aaron Chalmers, Reece Kendall, and Aidan Walker came in, and I don't want to speak for Mitch, but I think the three of them combined when they came in transformed what we were doing defensively. Josh Gregory as well, had to slot in at right centre half, and he's normally a midfield player. Helped us out down the line, and like I say, if you're keeping clean sheets regularly, you've got a chance. And to get on that run at the end of the season, keeping 9 clean sheets in concession, that's what got us over the line, really. We can talk about goals, and that record's, we're really proud of it, but defensively as well, they're the ones that win your leagues.
I think I've said that for a long time, is defences do win your leagues, really. Looking ahead then, what are your ambitions for Bury, and how, as they sort of go through the ranks, how can you reasonably achieve these?
I think our ambitions now is obviously to compete next year in the NPL West. We've all been there before in that league. We know what it's all about. There's another team in there that have got resources as much as we have in Hensford. So that's a challenge.
They could still go up though, couldn't they?
They could still go up, yeah. But I think a lot gets made of the resources that we have. But I mean, from the club's point of view, fans have to know that this is a club that went out of business not so long ago, and they're not in a position to be throwing money around. And obviously, other managers and players will talk about the resources available and things like that because of crowds and things. But I have to say, the club are running the club so that it can be sustainable for a long time. And that means that some of the figures that get bandied around are nowhere near the mark.
No.
So,
listen, Robbie Savage said it the other day, didn't he? They've obviously romped the league and they've romped all the records in that particular division there. But he said all the money in the world doesn't matter. You've still got to get over the line. Yeah. And that's the difficulty.
So for us, the ambition is to compete, but making sure that the club is in a really solid position. And, you guys will know from Skem's point of view that we're lucky, we're very lucky to have the fan base that we have, and it affords us some things that a lot of non-league clubs don't get. On the flip side of that, it's an opportunity to make sure that we're sustainable. And from the club's point of view, that's the main goal, is to
steady growth as well, because
Absolutely.
You don't want to outgrow yourselves at this stage. I mean, is it better to be a big fish in a small pond?
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate aim is to get back to the EFL, isn't it? That's where we want to go, but it has to be done in a way where the club can be self-sufficient when they get there, and they're not in a place that they ended up being. Off the back of Saturday, obviously we've spoken a lot to fans, and a lot of them have come to us and said this is better than anything we ever experienced, the promotions and things that they had previously, because they always had that hanging over them where we're going to get promoted out of League 2 now, but we don't know if we're going to make it to League 1 because of all the financial issues that the club had. And the goal for the club is to make sure that never happens again. And to do that, you can't overspend now. So we want to compete next season. We want to do it responsibly. We believe that we built a squad this season that could compete in the level above, and I think our FA Cup run showed that that's possible. We didn't play a side that was in at our step at all.
No.
In that run from Congleton. They were all away from home. We went to Congleton and won. We went to Avro and won. We went to Radcliffe and won. Garforth Town, we won there. Blythe Spartans, we won there. These are all clubs that were above us in the pyramid.
Yeah.
So we feel like the core of the group that we've got can compete at that level. We might add to it, wherever comes available in the summer. You just never know. But I think our ambition is to go and compete, but make sure it's done in the right way.
And obviously the steady increase in budget as well, which comes with moving up a level as well. So what are your plans for next season? Have you already started your homework?
Yeah, it started on Monday. We had our celebration Saturday.
Do you get to a lot of away games yourself to
I'm at every single game.
So you don't go. You don't particularly go to the home games.
Yeah, I'm at all of our own games, all of our away games, just as part of the backroom staff, and Daz Davis, who does the scout, and he goes out and watches all the teams for us. When we've got downtime, so everyone's been out at games the last couple of days, bank holiday Monday, and on Friday when there's games on, we'll all go out and watch games.
Yeah.
But the same will happen this weekend because obviously we're off. So we'll
You're married with
games.
children?
No, I've got a girlfriend. We've been together a long time. We live together, but no kids.
All right, so
that's why I look so young for 40.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, but you're in a fortunate position there, really, aren't you? Because listen, we know that you work excessive hours. Doesn't matter whether you're in a paid role of football or not. It can be a 16-hour a day job, can it?
It can, and I think what gets lost sometimes is the impact that it does have on the partners. Because they're sacrificing just as much as you are, really. You kind of set aside a Sunday afternoon for them a lot of times, don't you? And then the rest of the week,
you've got your head down.
Yeah, you go to work, you come home, you crack on with football, you go to bed, you do the same thing the day after, and then me living where I do and travelling to Bury was always a challenge, because it went from travelling down the M58 to Bootle to an hour and a half drive on a Tuesday and a Thursday.
How long did it take you to get back today?
A long time. I think I set off at 5 o'clock after my last meeting, and I got here at maybe 6:20, something like that. So all those things play into it, don't they? And that's what.
So when you're doing your analysis on a Saturday night, and you sat with the missus and she wants a bottle of wine, you must be a real fun person to be around.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully she doesn't drink, to be fair, but she in ways, the partners have to kind of learn to live with it, don't they, I guess?
Yeah, well, we know that only too well. Fortunately, I've got my wife, she works in hospitality, she does the kit and everything else, so we have a sort of close link with the football club, but in the past and previous relationships, it's not as easy as it.
Yeah, my girlfriend's not a football person either, so the first game that she's been to 2 games. It was when we beat Lower Breck with Skem at the JMO to finish second and get into the playoff final, and Saturday. So that they're the only 2 games she's ever been to. I think she probably wished that I had a little bit more time at times, but I think sometimes it can be good. Like she gets to do all the things that she wants to do, and when you do get that time together, you try and make it as quality as possible. But yeah, like non-league is
seek forgiveness, not permission.
That's it, mate. That's
demanding.
It. Yeah, non-league is very demanding. Yes. But I think that's why we all do it, isn't it? Because it's a completely different game.
Oh, I think, Matt. I think we're just absolutely balmy, aren't we?
Yes. Yeah. We are. We all want to.
I don't know why we do it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I call into question. But listen, not a lot of people know this, but you actually live in Skelmersdale still, yeah?
Just on the outskirts now. So I moved about 18 months ago to Orrell by the water park.
Oh, right.
So just past Up Holland, yeah.
Nice up there, yeah.
So my girlfriend's from Billings, so it was kind of in between the two. And
yeah.
Not a lot of people know what you used to do the programme at Skem as well, didn't you?
I did. I did some commercial, the programme, the match day graphics, all whilst there was the analyst, because again that's non-league football, and you chip in every way that you possibly can.
Yeah, definitely.
And look, I absolutely love my time at Skem. When I got into non-league football, that was where I wanted to be. just from growing up around here and going to games at White Moss before I moved to Stormy Corner, and you know, me and my dad used to go over and watch games at Stormy Corner at times.
I'm not going to say I've took it personally, but when I came back 2 years ago, you left, and so did your mum.
That's right.
Your mum Paula was on the board of directors, and I don't know whether to take it personally or not, but the two of you left at the same time.
No, not at all. I mean, initially my intention was to stay, but the entire management team got pulled apart, and I was pretty much the only one left, and that had happened previously as well when Paul McNally left, and I kind of looked at it and thought, is now the time? You know, like, it's happened once. You know, that team all went to City Liverpool. I'd had a good conversation with Brodie, who wanted me to stay, and I never really looked anywhere other than Skem, to be fair. But then when it happened the second time, and like obviously Jack had spoken to me up, I thought it's probably the right time to go and try it, and then obviously you came in not so long after that, didn't you? Because you know, when I first joined, Paul Griffiths was the chairman, and then Gordon took over from him at the end of that season, I think, and then you came back afterwards. But I thought, like, when I first joined, it was the only place that I wanted to go. Like that's where I wanted to be.
Listen, it's a bit of a no-brainer, really, isn't it? You know what I mean, in terms of stature. But listen, it's been fantastic having you on the show. All the best for next season.
Thank you.
What's your ambition secretly? Do you think you'll do well in the Northern Premier West?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think.
Hold your own.
Yeah, I think planning has always been for that, and you know, we've all had experience in that league, so. We know where it takes. Dave and Tim have won it already. They know where it takes to get over the line, and that we know it'll pose different challenges to this season. I think we're looking forward to it. You know, the fan base are looking forward to it. It's new grounds to visit. It's new places to go. It's hopefully new friends to make along the way. Because that's kind
you won't be going to Litherland on a Tuesday night on a soggy Tuesday night again.
Not this time.
All due respect to Litherland, the great people there, but I'm glad that I don't have to go there again next year.
Yeah, listen, all the very best.
Thank you.
It's been great speaking.
You,
all the best. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Special shout out to all the businesses that support Skelmersdale United Football Club, Origin Sign Company, T&W Garners, 7PDS, Skem Express Cars 5005, Lease Car UK, RNB Auto Centre, SB Skills Solutions and Hey Presto Web Design. Thank you to everyone who donates to the club, supports our race nights, raffles and the lottery bonus ball scheme, and of course the last man standing. A special thanks to those who organise these fundraising events, especially the incredible Lee Davis and Lucas Berquist. To all who stand by us both on and off the field, we are truly grateful. If you wish to sponsor the show, please contact me at chairman.skemutdfc@gmail.com or call me on 07766 054 548. All proceeds will go to Skelmersdale United Football Club. Thank you for your unwavering support.
Hello and welcome to the third and final part of the Speaking Frankly football show, and once again a big huge thank you to Chris Watts from Bury FC. Really insightful interview there into what his job entails.
Absolutely. I think that's the first time we've had an analyst on the show in any way, shape or form. It gives you a whole different dimension as to how football is perceived and interpreted and acted on in this day and age, and the more attention is paid to numbers and statistics, as Chris has told us, and we only look at all, that'll serve him and Bury extremely well as they make headway in the Northern Premier League West next season.
Well, it's certainly done them well this season, and it is a way forward for really ambitious football clubs. There's no doubt about that.
Very much so.
And it's good that you obviously when you get directors of football or such like, and then when you get lead analysts, it's really vital that everybody's on board and all singing from the same hymn sheet. So listen, that's an amazing little insight to what goes on there, and the fact that he's taken over as commercial director as well. I don't think I think he needs to find a room in Gig Lane and stay there.
Very much so, yeah. But he's spinning an awful lot of plates for the club at this point in time.
He certainly is. He certainly is. But listen, best of luck to listen. Best of luck to Chris, but best of luck to Berry moving onwards and upwards. We'll be keeping a keen eye on them. And listen, hopefully at some stage, Dave McNabb himself will come on the show.
We'd love that.
I've been reaching out.
There's definitely a very harmonious relationship between Bury fans and Skelmersdale United fans. So long may that continue, and we then look at all. We'll get Dave on the show to talk about it. Who knows? Maybe we'll even get to play you sometime soon.
Yeah, that would be even better. So listen, we're moving on to the playoffs, and this will be a shortened version of the last sort of part of segments of this show because there's not that many fixtures.
All playoffs and cup finals.
Yeah, they're all playoffs and cup finals. The First Division North playoff final is between Droylsden and Exton Villa, which we alluded to before. It's at the Butcher's Arms.
Home of Droylsden.
Yeah, we're expecting a huge gate.
Oh yes, very much so. So Droylsden had a little over 800 for their semi-final game against Holker Old Boys. Obviously Holker not exactly neighbours by any stretch of the imagination, so that was an enormous pull for them. With Exton being an awful lot closer, you should imagine that they'd be taking a good gate. You know, on a big day for Exton, they can get about 400-500 fans into their own ground, the Jim Fowler Memorial. So for this one, I would be expecting over 1,000.
Listen, there'll be a lot of ground hoppers as well, won't there?
I would imagine there'll be a fair few ground hoppers turning out for that game as well. I'll be honest, it's not the fixture I was expecting. I was really genuinely, and this is no disrespect to Exton, but I was expecting Droylsden to be playing Nelson, particularly given the season that Nelson had and how close they ran Atherton LR to top spot. But that being said, Exton had flirted with the playoffs last season, if I remember correctly. Did they? And they fell just short, if memory serves.
They lost to South Liverpool, did they?
In the was that in the semi-finals?
The semi-finals were Atherton LR versus
one of the Withy clubs, I should imagine.
Atherton LR. South Liverpool, they lost to South Liverpool, did they? Listen, anyway, I'm just rambling on there. But listen, anyway, like you say, it's not the final that we're expecting. But considering what happened last season, and South Liverpool came from nowhere to win the playoffs, you could see Exton still snatching this one.
Could be Exton's, most definitely. You know, they've got a really attacking based team. You know, they've got fullbacks that love to travel up the pitch, and in Alex Cahoon in the centre of midfield, they probably got one of the best anchors of the midfield in the division. So there's an awful lot for them to be optimistic about going into this game here. But Droylsden, with the season that they've had, they finished third in the domestic standings. They've got an enormous following at the Butcher's Arms. This is not going to be easy for Exton by any stretch of the imagination.
It would definitely be a hostile crowd. But listen, who are you going for, Droylsden or Exton Villa?
Droylsden.
I'm going to go for Droylsden as well. Just got a feeling that they're just about there, but I think it'll be a really, really tight game, and it might even be decided on penalties.
I think it could very well be decided on penalties. It took penalties for both of these teams to make it to the final, so it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case this time around. But I will say Droylsden, but I'll give me warmest congratulations to either team if they go, because they're both very deserving of it.
Yeah, Abbey Hulton versus Stafford Town in the Division South playoff. This is played at Drayton Beaumont Park, the home of Abbey Hulton.
Most certainly, and I believe Abbey Hulton will win that one. Home advantage counts for one, but they made pretty light work of Eccleshall, whereas Stafford Town had to hang on by a thread against Sandbach. And I feel for the amount of games that Stafford Town have played, because They've got a cup final coming up, but they've also just recently played the Edward Case Cup final against Atherton. They lost that 3-0. You wonder whether the big occasion's going to get to them, but you also wonder whether they've still got enough reserves in the tank to see Abbeyholton United.
But if we go back to our friend Dan Dawson, market trading manager, he said that Abbeyholton all the way. He expected them to win. He's seen them, thinks they're a great outfit.
Most certainly, yeah.
So where do we go? I can see Stafford nicking this one, to be perfectly honest with you, because you just get that feeling, don't you, that people to peak too soon?
Possibly, yeah. I don't know whether Abbeyholton kind of peaked too soon. I mean, they were outside the playoffs until about February, March time, something like that one, and we hadn't really discussed them on the show. Most of our discussion had been around it being a 2-horse race between Stafford and Winsford, and in the end, Abbeyholton have finished second, so I think they've probably timed it just right. So I'm going to say a home win and Abbeyholton to go up.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm going for Abbeyholton as well.
There we go. Now then, our attention turns to the North West Counties Premier League semi-finals, which kick into place on this Saturday as well. The two fixtures, one will take place in Liverpool at the Anfield Sports Community Centre, and the other one at the Harry Williams Riverside Stadium in Ramsbottom. So, Lower Breck take on West Didsbury and Chorlton in the first semi-final, Lower Breck finishing second and West Didsbury and Chorlton finishing fifth.
Well, it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
West Didsbury away from home. It's whether they'll bring a decent crowd with them. You'd expect that they will.
You would certainly imagine so. They brought a big one to the Isle of Man in their final domestic game, so that fixture saw over 1,000 fans pack into the bowl, and I think West Didsbury and Chorlton actually won that game.
Yeah, they did. I think it was 2-0 in the end, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Lower Breck, they've had a fantastic season. We've already said that.
Yeah, what more
can they go one step further and win in the semi-finals? I'm not entirely convinced they will. I think West Didsbury might nick this one.
Okay.
I know that's a controversial one.
That's a bolt from the blue, Franklin, and it's not something that I would side with you on. I think Lower Breck will have enough in the tank to make it, and so I am seeing a home win there.
I'm going for West Didsbury and Chorlton.
Alrighty. And then the other semi-final, the Harry Williams Riverside Stadium in Ramsbottom, cash only on the gate.
Is it cash only again? Is it?
It is, yeah. So that's Ramsbottom United against Padiham.
Yeah, well, listen, we get back to our interview with Steve Wilkes and the fact that Harry Williams, the chairman, is still way behind with technology.
Yeah, he is. Behind the times, as it is. But he's as far as his investment into the team is going, he's about as current as any manager in our level, really. You know, Ramsbottom have had an outstanding season.
Well, listen, they were leading the way for a long period of time, weren't they?
Yeah, they took over from Chadderton, probably around about the turn of December. They held it up until January, February time, and then the Bury train kicked in, if you like. So they finished about 13 points. I think it's about either 10 or 13 points behind Bury in the end. But they did have some wobbles and drops along their last few games. So I see this one being the tightest of all the playoff games that we have discussed so far. Particularly with Padiham having an excellent run in their last few games, and again, you've not really taking notice away from Padiham's top goal scorer Josh Briggs. Wasn't on the score sheet in the 2-2 draw with Stockport Town, but may very well be refreshed and ready for this game.
Well, listen, I'd like to see Ramsbottom win it.
So would I.
So I'm going to have to stick with that thought and go for them.
So would I, yeah. So we're behind you on this one, Wilksy, and we hope very much for a home win.
Yeah, good luck, Steve.
Good luck, Steve, indeed.
Yeah.
Now then, the two winners of those semi-final games will contest the playoff final, which will be on Saturday the 3rd of May, and it will be hosted by whichever team finished higher in the domestic standings. That would immediately kind of go to lower Breck if they won their semi-final, then Ramsbottom, then Padiham, and then West Didsbury and Chorlton.
And we can discuss this, of course, in next Thursday's episode, because that takes place on Saturday the 3rd. Monday the 5th of May is the Macron Cup final at the WAM Stadium, Accrington Stanley, Charnock Richard versus Stafford Town.
Most certainly.
A little sort of Northwest Counties showpiece. That'll be a great final to go and watch, I would imagine.
Final, yeah, absolutely. Charnock Richard finished the season in a little bit of style by beating... they drew with Squires Gate, so maybe a little less style than what we were thinking. And actually it was an 89th minute equaliser that got them that point. But... against already relegated Squires Gate, so maybe good, maybe bad. It really does depend on how you look at this. But Charnock Richard would certainly have more of an advantage in that they will be more rested, whereas Stafford will have played the week before.
Or you can look at it another way. If Stafford win their playoff semi-final, then they come into that game full of hope and. They might just go for the cup as well.
Well, that playoff final, isn't it, on Saturday for them? So it's make or break these next few days for their season, really. Having already been gallant runners-up in the Edward Case Cup final and, had the domestic hopes kind of fall away by Winsford's ridiculous unbeaten run. They've got 2 cup finals in which to play. Will they beat Charnock Richard, having just negotiated Abbey Hulton United?
Well, listen, we can discuss that next week, can't we? In next week's show.
Fine.
I'm just looking at the fixtures here, and I can't see the what date the playoff final is for the Division 1 North. Oh, sorry, they are the finals, aren't they?
Yeah, they
Take no
are.
notice, mate. It's been a long day. Take no notice. I'll try and edit that out if I can. If I can't, you're stuck with it. But listen, I thought we'd spend the last sort of segment just speaking about Skelmersdale United Football Club.
Yes.
Our football club, of course, and what lies ahead for us. The only information that I can give to supporters is that no decisions have been made on whether there's likely to be a reprieve for Skem. I don't expect to hear anything until probably mid-May. Obviously, we've got to wait for the playoff finals to be decided before the FA can make any decisions, I would imagine. What I did hear that Gordon Johnson was at which game was he? He was at the Atherton LR Stafford game on Monday, and either overheard someone high up in the Northwest Counties, not going to name names, that have said that, listen, there's absolutely no chance for Skem because their points per game ratio is so inferior to everybody else that it's not likely to happen. The question that I've been trying to get answered on a continual basis is, does that change with lateral movement? Does that change if, in line with what the Northwest Counties want, they don't want to relegate a team if there's less than 20 teams in a division? From what I believe, the FA are in alignment with that. If that's the case, then is it too soon or is it too late for the FA to make up those numbers? And will that make any difference?
Well, there's 18 teams in Division 1 North, isn't there?
But the likelihood is that Route 1 Rovers have asked for lateral movement.
Yeah.
I think Main Road asked to go back to the South, Division 1 South. So, listen, with lateral movement going one way, obviously there's movement coming the other way as well.
Yeah, and we don't know too much about which clubs may be coming into the division.
We're pretty sure that it's going to be MSB Walton and Fullwood Amateurs, who we both believe have passed the ground grading criteria and have finished high enough within the top 5. I think there was other clubs. I think Winstanley Warriors were one, but I think they finished bottom of the league, so they're out of the count. But listen, it's whatever it is, whether we're in the the West Cheshire League, the Cheshire League, or the Liverpool Premier League. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. What we do know is that we took up a ground share agreement with Marine, so we're moving to a really, really good set up there, the National League North ground. It's fabulous facilities, and we're grateful to Paul and James Leary for making that happen.
Yeah.
So we're certainly looking forward to next season, come what may. But what I would say to everybody is, listen, be patient. It's the progression. We had to go to Marine. We're still in negotiations with the council and with other stakeholders in terms of a return back to Skelmersdale. I've got a very important meeting on the 28th of May, and hopefully have some news to come from that at a later date. But we're working hard behind the scenes to get back to Skem. The limited resources the football club has had over the last few years has been well documented. Unfortunately, with that, you can't really be ambitious. You can't compete. But what we do say to people is we've got to keep on floating, and the offer goes out to potential sponsors and sponsors that have been with us last season to stay on board, or for people to come on board as well and support the football club that's got a 143-year history. And we will be celebrating like we normally do on the Friday the 2nd of May when we have our players presentation evening at Newborough Sports Club. Everybody's welcome there. Tickets are still available.
£10 each.
£10 each. Get in touch with us on social media if you need tickets, or contact me directly. But like I say, our main aim is to keep the history of Skem intact, protect the legacy, and then see where we go from there. But if anybody thinks this is easy, if anybody thinks that decisions are made half-heartedly, then they're very far off the mark. And I'd just like to say to anybody that's been involved with the football club and has become critical of the club, if you're going to let the dust settle, just let the dust settle. We tell the truth. We've given you honesty. If you're not happy with that, well, just go back into the woodwork and say nothing, because your words are not really... they don't mean anything to the people that are working really hard behind the scenes, and you should really know better yourself. But there we are. That sort of sums up Skem really at the moment. I don't know whether you want to add anything to that, AJ.
No, I would only really echo your sentiments, to be honest, Frank. Obviously, we've made the decision to move to Marine. It was, it was a decision that had to be made, and it was a really good olive branch extended by James Leary at Marine, and we are very grateful to him for giving us this opportunity. And with it, comes opportunities for new investors, for new adventures, for new friends to be made. So there are a lot of positives to come out of moving grounds. Obviously, the primary goal, and what has always been the primary goal, is to get back to the town of Skelmersdale. And, although we aren't shouting about it on social media, we are making moves to get us back to the town. By one way or another. As Frank says, he's got a really important meeting with relevant persons coming up that could have a big impact on where the club is, going forward. What I will say is keep the faith. Keep the faith in us as custodians of the club to do the right thing for the club. And by all means, feel free to ask the questions about why we've made decisions. We're very open, we're very honest about why we've made decisions. It's never ever for selfish gain or to put the club of Skelmersdale United in a worse position. That's never ever our intention at all. So just keep supporting us as people and as custodians. Keep supporting the players as representatives of the club on the pitch as well, and give us some time to pull together the best way forward for Skelmersdale United, and we promise you at the end of it, it will all be worth it.
Yeah, and listen, it's fair to say that at the end of the day, it could have been the end of the football club could have come as 2 years ago. There was every reason then to give up, like a lot of people had done previously that had stepped away from the club. And I want to say give up. It's a very, very demanding task to look after a non-league football club, and all those volunteers that have gone before and those that will follow on from us. It's a difficult task, and it's easier. Sometimes it's easier to give up than carry on, and we didn't. 2 years ago, we worked our absolute trolleys off to continue the legacy, and we're in the same position now. We want the legacy to continue at all costs, and that's where we are. But listen, like AJ said, try keep supporting us. We need the money. We need the support.
Yeah.
And I know it's a little bit more difficult. It's 9 more minutes away in terms of travel distance in a car. It's double the distance, I know, so it costs a little bit more to get there, but it's a fabulous setup. You'll enjoy the football there, and hopefully we start getting back to winning ways. So listen, AJ, we come to that stage of the show where we ask, what have we learnt over the last week or so?
Goodness me. Well, what I will say is that every single volunteer is absolutely critical to the success of a club, and I think that was absolutely illustrated by Chris and his amazing insight into how he gets every single little bit of potential out of his players, and what he does to nurture them in every way that he possibly can. And that's the same for any volunteer within the club in their capacities, whether that's just making sure that the doors are unlocked and the changing rooms are accessible, all the way through to making sure that the players have an arm put around them at the end of a game if they've had a difficult match. These little attentions to detail are so important into the success of a club on and off the pitch.
And patience is a virtue. What I've learned over the long sort of haul of the season is that it doesn't matter whether you're top, middle or bottom. It's as difficult for everyone.
Yeah.
And I just like to say to all of those that have competed against us, above us, or in the Division 1 South, to all those that are involved with those football clubs, whether you're volunteers, sponsors, supporters, then you are really, really vital to those football clubs, and it's incredible the amount of support non-league football receives, and long may it continue. But we vitally need the support. We need support and sponsorship if we're going to continue to be ambitious at any level. So if you are a business in any area which we've featured on the Speaking Frankly football show, and you'd like to support those clubs through sponsorship, then don't be shy. Make contact with them. Don't wait for them to make contact with you. Sometimes it's difficult to actually get to the top person, the decision makers in these companies. But you'll be truly warmly welcomed if and when you do. I've learnt it's as difficult for everyone, but keep the faith and look after each other. And listen, with that, I'll leave the final words, as per usual, to the dulcet tones of AJ.
You've been listening to the Speaking Frankly football show with me, AJ Vergette, and my co-host, Mr. Frank Hughes. Please remember to like and subscribe to us on whichever streaming service you get your podcasts, so that you can be the first to find out when a new episode of a Speaking Frankly football show has been released. Please also review and leave words of feedback for us, as we do thrive on those kind words of feedback, whether constructive, critical or positive. We are also available on Facebook and X under the banner Speaking Frankly. And from the pair of us, we will be back next week with another episode of the Speaking Frankly Football Show. Until then, bye-bye for now.